Hello and welcome to the Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today I'm looking at the collection Harley Loves Joker. More or less a 2017 to 2018 series. You may know, especially if you've watched my other Harley Quinn video, that Harley actually got her start in Batman the Animated Series, and not in the comic books. The show briefly touched on her origins, but mostly we saw her as though she were already a well-established henchwoman to the Joker. Similarly, when she made her first in-continuity main universe appearance in the comic books, during the No Man's Land stories, they treated her character as if she'd been hanging around Joker for about as long as anyone could remember. What all that means is that there weren't really any stories that went over Harley's early days with the Joker. While there have been origin stories that have seen her transition from brilliant psychologist Harley Quinzel to psychotic clown sidekick Harley Quinn, a story that involves her falling madly in love with the Joker, few if any of those stories have actually explored much of the time shortly after that as Harley and Joker's relationship began to blossom and grow. The New 52 Harley Quinn series, for example, already has Harley pretty fiercely independent from her longtime beau, and sees her moving off to New York to further establish her as her own separate character. When that series ended, writers Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti would continue to work on a new series for the DC Rebirth, and it would be in the pages of that comic that this story would begin to run as a backup feature, possibly in preparation for Harley's 25th anniversary, which would happen in 2018. But don't let that fool you, because this story isn't part of the DC Rebirth, but instead harkens back to the early days of the animated series, with art intentionally imitating the Bruce Timm art style of the TV show, and with the story being written by the other half of Harley's original creative team, Paul Dini. This brief backup story would eventually evolve into its own 2-issue comic to conclude the story started in the feature, and all of those various bits and pieces would be put together into this collection that we're looking at today. So let's see just what kind of trouble this crazy couple can get into and take this away. The comic opens on the day after Christmas! Aw, guess we missed all the good stuff then. Looks like Joker missed it too, cause he comes storming out of this store in a rage. It seems someone already hit the store he was planning to rob, and now he's got nothing to show for his work except a blaring alarm. So Harley and Joker return home to their hideout where Joker can spend one of those nights sulking. Things only get worse on New Year's Eve when Joker sees that an armored car he was planning to hit the next day was also robbed before he got the chance. And even Harley's attempts to raise his spirits using the famous, or infamous, nightie from Mad Love doesn't seem to help any. Well, it didn't work for her in that story either. Joker instead decides a night out on the town is in order, so the pair head to the rooftops where they get a lovely view of the New Year's Eve fireworks show. Joker being nice to Harley? That seems really wrong. And it looks like the lovely fireworks display wasn't the reason he dragged her out here, but instead, it was to rob a random store. While the pair pilfer all the goods, Joker pauses to steal a lovely fur coat for Harley, so she ditches her old one into the trash. Personally, I think the coat that actually matches her color scheme looked way more awesome, but I guess what do I know? The clowns loot and scoot, thinking they've gotten away with the perfect crime, but when they get home and Joker turns on the news to revel in the police's confusion, he instead finds the Bat himself, showing that they know exactly who is responsible for the theft, thanks to having discovered Harley's discarded jacket. Although, I think the big takeaway here is that Batman gives interviews on the news. That doesn't seem very Batman. It might feel a little far-fetched for even Batman to track them down just from one jacket, but he's able to do it. Turns out there's a really simple explanation for that. Harley wrote her name and return address on the label, just in case she lost it. Smart move, actually. Unless, you're a criminal on the run hiding from the law. Oh well. I like how she explains that she's been doing that since she lost her satin bomber, which is probably a reference to her freaking great DC Bombshells design. Batman trounces the couple like he always does, especially since they can't stop getting in each other's way. So to escape, Harley sicks her babies on Batman. The hyenas, Bud and Lou. Or is it Lou and Bud? I can't really remember. Twins, Harley and Joker escape, and Joker plans to blow up their hideout in order to finish off the Bat, despite that meaning also blowing up the hyenas, which Harley is not happy about. Luckily, Batman got himself and the hyenas out just in time. Harley chooses to believe Joker knew the babies were safe, even though it's pretty obvious he neither knew or cared. Now with no hideout and on the run from the cops, Joker checks them into a Fleabag hotel where he makes a strangely personal confession of his affection for Harley. Although unfortunately for him, Harley is asleep for most of it. It's still weird seeing Joker be sweet to Harley, but I guess their entire relationship can't all have been Joker being awful to her. We need some reason to make it at least remotely believable that Harley would be able to convince herself the relationship was worth it, when in fact it was a horribly abusive relationship that she needed to get the hell out of ASAP. I mean, Harley can obviously do way better. She should, I don't know, find herself a nice plant lady or something. I'm just brainstorming here. Life in the hotel gets pretty strained pretty quickly though, especially with Joker moving in his gang and getting refocused on the mysterious thief who keeps jumping in on his jobs before he gets to carry them out himself. To give Harley a chance to cool off, Joker sends her out on an errand to Jake's joke shop for some of his great clown-themed supplies, but when she gets there, she finds the place being closed down as it's been bought out by some new yuppie owners who want to turn it into an artisan cold brew coffee bar to gentrify the place for young hipsters. Well, I guess Harley's hipster hatred isn't limited to just the Connor Palmiotti series. Is this like a New York thing or something? Do older people just think it's hilarious to make fun of hipsters? Boomers. Am I right, fellow teenagers? So in her hipster rage, Harley takes care of the two building owners. And by that I mean she sticks them in a cargo crate and ships them out to sea like they're Dr. Doom in a Fantastic Four movie. With the real owners out of the way, Harley decides to spruce up the old joke shop as a new hideout for her and Joker. To do this, she heads off to meet up with the Wonderland Gang, consisting of some of the millions of Lewis Carroll-themed villains in Gotham. With this gang made up of the Walrus, March Harriet, the Carpenter, and Tweedledum and Tweedledee. Or is it Tweedledee and Tweedledum? I can't remember. Twins, you know? Harley contracts Jenna Duffy, the Carpenter, to help her rebuild the joke shop into the ultimate hideout that includes a pool and sauna, an indoor hyena run, and a giant carnival-themed bedroom. But Jenna wasn't doing all of this as a favor and is expecting payment for her work. A very large payment. Knowing Harley might stiff her on the bill, Jenna secretly wired the place to blow in 7 days if she doesn't get reimbursed for all her hard work. Which is a weird choice to make, honestly. If the place blows, she never gets the money she needs to pay back her debts. She'd be much better off accepting some kind of payment plan, but she flat out refuses that kind of offer from Harley. But maybe it's dumb of me to start criticizing the logic of supervillains. Desperate for the money, Harley uses the joke shop's leftover costumes to start holding up fast food restaurants. You don't have grape soda? Fool! Orange doesn't fit the color scheme? God. Harley's problems only get worse when Joker finally catches on to Harley's little secret activities of the past few weeks, and Joker isn't the kind who likes surprises, so it's no surprise for us when he confronts Harley and thanks her and seems genuinely excited to move in? Huh. That is actually surprising. And I mean, he really thanks her, if you know what I mean. And I'm not sure I want to know what those two do in bed. Ugh. Joker is still focused on that mysterious thief who by this point we have managed to learn refers to herself as the Grison, which is sort of a South American ferret skunk, which, according to a Google image search, is about as cute as it sounds. Joker works with the Penguin to set a trap for the Grison at the Iceberg Lounge, but she proves too weaselly, or maybe too skunky, for them to catch, and she slips away. Harley manages to follow her though, since she's realized that the two of them actually have a past. It seems Grison is really Gabriella Matias. And once, the two of them were both students at Gotham University and part-time workers at Star Labs, where they looked after the animals, including Puppy, Bud, and Lou. Aw, look at the little guys. Even hyenas can be cute as pups. Who knew? But Gabby was always bad news, and she used her access to do some experiments of her own, ones inspired by Dr. Langstrom's theories on the commingling of human and animal DNA. Dr. Langstrom, of course, being the guy who turned himself into a man-bat. Which is like a Batman, but, you know, opposite. Or reversed. However you want to look at it. And I agree that he's a crazy man, but Harley calling someone cuckoo is a bit like a squirrel calling something nuts, isn't it? The two fight over Gabby's extracurriculars, but Harley has been paying her way through college thanks to an athletic scholarship that comes from being an all-star gymnast. So she has the upper hand on her more studious colleague and knocks her out, exposing her criminal activities to Star Labs, which gets the Langstrom wannabe sent back to her home country of Brazil, where she's forced to continue her experiments on the local wildlife, which allows her to eventually transform into the Grison. And now you know the rest of the backstory. Good day, but there's a twist, because it seems Grison didn't come to destroy the Joker, she came to join him, and offers up all the loot she's stolen in Gotham as proof of her sincerity. And Joker, much to Harley's chagrin, immediately welcomes Grison to the gang. He even begins to show a preference for the Grison's competent help as opposed to Harley's random destructiveness, and takes the Grison's side in planning heist and having poor Bud and Lou locked up. I mean, don't feel that bad for them, Harley. They've got a pretty sweet hyena run to be locked up in, at least. Harley begins to feel pretty dissociative over her mixed feelings and even begins psychoanalyzing herself using her own former self as Doctor. Which is probably not the best way to come to an unbiased opinion, but at least she probably charges less than that grifter the Carpenter. Past Harley wants present Harley to leave the Joker, knowing that, reasonably, he's never going to be good for her. But Harley has trouble bringing herself to do it. But when Harley naysays one of the Grison's plans to steal an experimental weapon from Wayne Enterprises and the Joker goes absolutely mental on Harley, am I using that correctly, British people? Harley finally decides she's had enough. So she calls in a tip about the heist. Though, not wanting to risk calling the cops, she instead calls Wayne Manor, faking a British accent so nobody will know who the tip came from. But she's not fooling Alfred, and I just love his completely calm response to her call. Oh Alfred, you're the best. Also, it's not me, bye. Yeah, very convincing, Harley. Harley then packs her bags to leave with much excitement from Harleen in doing so, but just before she leaves, she discovers the Joker left her a present. It seems all his yelling at her and siding with the Grison was just for show, so he could lure the Grison into a false sense of security and take her out like he always wanted to. This gets Harley to immediately fall back into old habits, just like any toxic relationship, prompting past Harley to leave in frustration, transforming herself into future Harley, donning a look more along the lines of the Rebirth Harley Quinn. Rebirth Harley manages to get a bit deeper into Harley's psyche than past Harley did, touching on the truth of Harley's dependence on the Joker. Man, I did not expect this ridiculous comic to start getting so dark. Let's get back to some action. We look in on the heist to find Joker preparing for his betrayal of Grison, only to find her once again one step ahead. Luckily, Harley shows up to rescue the Joker from the deadly laser trap security system at Wayne Enterprises, and Batman shows up to take the Grison problem off of their hands. Oh Batman, you're so cool. Harley's troubles aren't over though, as she still hasn't paid off the Carpenter, so she pushes everyone into the ridiculous Joker mobile, insisting they all take a vacation. Right then, the original owners of the shop show up, rescued from their long hardship at sea, only to end up getting blown up when the Carpenter sets off the bomb. Seriously, everything about those characters feels like a joke from the Connor Palmiotti series. Joker wants to know what the deal with their exploding hideout is, but Harley, tired and abused, gives him a less than forthcoming answer. At least the Joker finds her answer amusing, and the two ride off into the sunset, laughing their insane clown asses off. Which brings us to the breakdown. This comic definitely feels like a backup feature. The first 8 parts that all actually were a backup feature feel very much written like some kind of Sunday comic strip. They're short, zany, and feel like they're rushing really hard to get to the point and move on. Which is fine, but it does make it not especially interesting to read all collected like this. I kind of enjoy how they decided to go with the Batman animated series look for the series, and artist Brett Blevins does a pretty great job of nailing that style down. But it does make it look pretty awkward when he essentially goes off script and his own style shines through. It makes things look very out of character, which coupled with how out of character I feel the Joker is acting for most of this, makes this feel almost more like a fan story than an official one. And that feeling of fanfiction is doubled up by just how much fan service this series gives. And I'm honestly a bit uncomfortable with just how much they sexualize Harley Quinn. I mean, she spends like half the series in a partially see-through negligee. On the other hand, I enjoy a lot of the little ideas that the series explores, like explaining Harley's physicality with her background as a gymnast, and the comparison of the different versions of the character and how she's grown and changed over the years, physically manifested in her interactions with her past and future selves. And I of course enjoy the little references, like this picture in their hideout of the Joker, how he looks in the later seasons of the animated series when they'd lost most of their budget. That's a nice little nod. So I'm giving this a series recommendation level of medium. Overall, I liked it, and it's a fairly fun and interesting read for Harley Quinn fans like me, but I'm just not sure it's going to have much of an appeal for anyone else. The collected edition gets one Happy Harley Quinn. And yeah, of course that's a good thing. Even though it has only 2 full-sized issues collected here, having the 8 parts of the backup story still gives you a lot to read. Plus, they go ahead and load you up with extras in the form of issue covers, alternate issue covers, and a bunch of Brett Blevins sketch work. So all in all, pretty cool. Thanks everybody for watching. I'm kind of thinking of doing a Harley Quinn story every year for Valentine's Day. I don't know, that might get pretty weird when Valentine's Day is falling at the beginning of the week, but I guess we'll see. Let me know in the comments if you'd like me to cover Harley Quinn more often than that, or anything else you would like to see me cover. I'll try to get to those things as soon as I can, but until then, make sure to click like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time, right here in the Comic Cave.